Ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Brisker.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And etc.
Now, Bears Etc. brought to you by Chevy Drives Chicago, the official truck partner of your Chicago Bears.
It's Packer Week. Enough said. And we'll go through this twice in 3 weeks. It's going to be fun. Oh, the joy, Tom, of a Bears-Packer Week and the joy of the NFC North right now. A battle for the top, and the Bears digging in for the long haul here. With Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. We discussed in episode 192 of the Bears Etc. podcast. This episode of Bears Etc. brought to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com, the official truck of your Chicago Bears. Coming up, we visit with a friend of Tom's and an outstanding, now retired former NFL coach and Notre Dame quarterback Tom Clements, most recently the QB coach with the Green Bay Packers. The national attention on the Bears, as we predicted, is really ratcheting up, and it's going to take on a whole different way here as we move forward here in the final 5 weeks.
Yeah, the NFL knows the importance of this football game because they changed the starting times of both games already.
Yeah.
But when you reference the word joy is singular. There is no multiple versions of the word joy during Packer Week. The preparation is intense. The mood around the building has that angst to it. The only reason there is joy is if we're getting on the bus at Lambeau Field and the Bears win the game, period.
Yep. Beginning of a stretch, though, and I think we mentioned this in the last podcast, of what can be best described as big. This is big.
Oh, it's enormous because of the way the NFL has put together the schedule. And when you talk about there's not only 2 Green Bay games, but there's a lingering Detroit game at the end of the year. And then you fly out to San Francisco and you have a visit by the Cleveland Browns. So when you talk about big, I guess you sum that up in a 5-week picture here. But there's no bigger game than this one coming up at 3:25 on Sunday.
When you're breaking things down, and you're Caleb, say you're Caleb right now, and you know Micah Parsons is on the other side of the ball. Obviously, the protections have to be set. The offensive line take care of that business, the tight end, the chips, whatever it's going to be, the focus and making sure you know where that guy's at. How do you feel that impacts a quarterback? When Jim McMahon or Mike Tomczak or Steve Fuller faced some great quarterbacks back in your day, Jim Harbaugh, great pass rushers, I should say, do you keep a side eye on them? Does it affect the way you play? You just trust the guys up front?
No. All you have to do is you have to know your system well enough, especially the pass protection at this point in the season. In every single protection I called, any down and distance, play action to drop back, where's my vulnerability? Because somewhere along the line, there's going to be a direction to the protection, or there's going to be a point of emphasis on a certain player, but there's going to be somebody out there that has a difficult assignment. You can't double team everybody, Jeff. And so you have to know your protection so well that if I have to make a decision in an instant, if I have to make sure I understand where to go with the football. You know, the great story is when we played Minnesota in the Jim McMahon game. You know, the very first play he came in, he saw the safety shifting during the cadence, and he knew that he had a screen called, and he knew that Willie was going to have single coverage, and that's where he ended up throwing the ball. And even Ditka, when he got back to the sideline, Ditka says, Jim, what did you call? He said, Mike, I called the screen, but I saw the safety shifting. So it's those types of elements that are built into the play and the protection that if you know it better than they do, you can make a big play like that. So it's not necessarily who and where, it's what I just called and what are the vulnerabilities.
Every sip of Blue Moon's Belgian-style wheat ale, crafted with Valencia orange peel and coriander. There's a winning drive for your taste buds. When you choose a Blue Moon, everything becomes brighter, just like the scoreboard after a Bears touchdown. Celebrate responsibly, Chicago. Caleb Williams at the podium on Tuesday up at Hallis Hall, addressing this rivalry and this week of Bears-Packers.
Since this is the only week that we got, you definitely want to go out there and keep proving ourselves.
But does it give you a confidence, having gone up there and won before?
Yeah. I think throughout this whole year, what we've been able to accomplish has given us an extreme confidence. And then, for myself, being a part of something that, everybody knows the stats of the Bears going up there before last year, it wasn't the best. And so being able to be a part of that, being able to contribute to that provides confidence for myself and, gonna exude that to the other guys.
What have you come to appreciate about the rivalry, and what do you know about it now that you maybe didn't know when you get drafted?
I would say some of the history, like, kind of what I just said of, the games and how the games have gone and, some of the, the long streaks that have gone on. I didn't really know that getting drafted here, but I definitely appreciate it. You love rivalries. I've been in some cool, fun rivalries throughout my career so far, whether it's NFL or college. And so they're always fun. They always come down to, it's an emotional game. It always comes down to, the final minutes. And so, being able to try and go out there and put up as many points as possible, defense hold them as to the least amount of points as possible, and special teams go make plays for us. That's what we're going to try and do. But, being able to control our emotions, throughout the whole game is what we're going to focus on.
Caleb, since the spring, what do you identify here in the environment that's created sort of the springboard for you guys to have the success you've had so far?
Yeah, I think it starts with Coach and what he told us he was going to be for us and how consistent he was. And then from there, and how consistent he is. And then from there, it's just, the things that he provided us that ultimately are going to help us win, the details, the discipline, and all those things. And then, you put all those together, you start winning some ball games. And, you got to keep being consistent, and you got to keep, laying on the basics and harping on the basics. And so that's what we're going to keep doing throughout the whole year. And, that's something that he put up this morning is, always go back to basics, because basics.
Now, obviously, there's been production there. There's been those games for 4-touchdown game early on this season. Do you feel like the passing game is getting close to where you want it to be kind of consistently?
Yeah, it's so close. I mean, like if you look at last game, there was obviously I had the two that that I should have hit thrown to the right side, Rome and DJ, and then right time and right everything miss. And then we have the other couple plays where the guy slip, but it's right time and right spot. It's just the guy slip, and then. Then we had a couple where it was just, a miscommunication on, him breaking in or out and things like that. So it's we were in the right spot, right time, and it's just, just not on the same page. So that's really what it's come down to. And so us going back and watching film and looking at it and all of that, we're so close, and we'll be hitting here soon.
Ben said the other about your game in Philly. He said take the stats, throw it out.
Yeah, take the stats out. You go watch some ball, and you'll be able to really see.
And he was really complimentary about how you managed that game. Like, what have you learned about being a quarterback and managing a football game?
Yeah, that's a part of quarterback. Obviously, when it's time to go make plays, when it's time to maybe make a comeback, or when it's time to put the game away, those times come. But when throughout the whole game, throughout 1 through 3, and part of the fourth, it's being able to make consistent plays, routine plays, and I think that's what I've been trying to focus on for myself, is just make the routine plays, make the consistent plays, and then when the time comes, I know that our guys and myself, that we'll step up to the plate and either end the game or make a comeback or anything like that. But we're, like I said, like I've been saying, we want to focus on those 1 through 3 and part of 4 and try and get ahead as much as possible. And like I said, that's something that I'm going to keep focusing on, because that's part of quarterbacking, is managing the game. Dirting it on a couple of screens that we had, and small things like that, thrown out of bounds, all these different things to be able to try and keep the team in a positive position. And so. Like I said, we're going to keep doing that as a team. I'm going to keep, trying my best to, do that. And then when the time comes, go in the game.
Was there a moment this season when you thought, oh, this might be a special year?
Yeah, I've felt that as soon as we started getting the guys in the building. As soon as it's funny, we like Ben and I, we'd be up in the office, and like we got a special group here because we got so many guys that care. And I've said that on multitude of times, and so being able to feel that energy, being able to know the guys and the type of guys we have in the building, just trying to be able to work on all the details, get everything right in my wheelhouse, and then obviously try and help the guys and push the guys and try and make sure they're in the right spot. But early on, I felt that we had a real shot, and just got to keep working towards.
Is there confidence that's added to your game when you know now that you're going out there versus some of the best pass rushers, but you've got one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in football standing in front of you?
Absolutely. There's not a time that I step on that field and I don't feel confident, and a lot of that comes from those guys up in front of me. For what they do for me, our bond, we laugh and joke. I said this to Case the other day. I mean, the O-line they're my type of guys because, they laugh, joke, and they have a good time, but all they do is love football. They don't get the credit they deserve. But every time that I can and will, I'll step up here and say that, every time that I step on the field, like I said, I feel extremely confident in those guys, and a lot of it, comes from it.
When Ben starts the week emphasizing the urgency to get the passing game wrapped up collectively, and it takes all 11, what do you hear in terms of your 111th this week of trying to get that going?
Yeah, details, and when the time comes, give the guys a runner's ball. And then from there, let them go be special. But, my part of it is details, it's footwork, being clean, and moving throughout the concepts, getting reps and visualizing all the different reps and concepts that we have throughout the weeks, and visualize completing each pass and the coverage or how I may be in my drop or pressure or anything like that, and just feeling confident in that, and then delivering a good runner's ball for those guys so they can go make special plays for us.
I know we all think we can live on the run game alone, but gonna need all of it to come together to go compete for a Super Bowl.
So the last time you left that stadium, you have a good taste in your mouth, but then you kind of have to wash all of it away because there's no similarities to then and now. You have to have an extremely amount of faith in the development of the game plan by Ben Johnson. But, you're going to have to go in there, and this is so far from being a finished product offensively that you have to make those progressions week in and week out. And if you're just trying to minimalize this to the performance of the quarterback, I think you're losing out on the big picture. Is the running game sustainable? Yes. And I think it's something that you can do repeatedly. And it's kind of funny because in our radio show on ESPN, we always do my thoughts.
Tom's thoughts.
And one of them pertains directly to that. And I don't want to give it up, but I do think the running game is sustainable, and that can be the foundation and the base for your game planning going into a stadium like this.
Hey, Bears fans, Steinhoffels is a proud partner of the Chicago Bears. This Bears season, Steinhoffels is partnering with Special Spaces Illinois to create dream bedrooms for children battling cancer. For every false start caused by the Bears defense during a home game, Steinhoffels will donate $1,000 to Special Spaces Illinois. Shop in store and online at steinhoffels.com. All right, let's go into what you saw from the Packer tape defending Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, because they've done a nice job with Jahmyr Gibbs over the years. What are they doing up front? Granted, they lost Devontae Wyatt. That's big at defensive tackle. In my opinion, I think that's real big. But what is it that the Packers do well defensively to at least handle that Detroit game last week?
Linebacker flow. They got some really good speed at the linebacker position. And if you can get complimented by your defensive line up front, and they can either create a stalemate between double teams at the line of scrimmage, and a linebacker maybe has that step of freedom that you need when you're chasing down a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, or if you have that step of in position, fundamental tackling position, a guy like David Montgomery, they just play really complimentary football against the Detroit Lions. And like I say, and I'm a big believer, when you play the Detroit Lions at home, or you play any team at home, and you get to become familiar with the rhythm of the cadence, sometimes that gives the defense an equal get off against the offense. And so when you talk about these guys playing against each other, I just think the defense played a solid fundamental style of front seven, front eight football.
How do you tell a cashier you're a Bears fan without telling them you're a Bears fan? With the Chicago Bears PNC Bank Visa debit card, which gets you exclusive discounts on Bears merchandise. Find out more at pnc.com/BearsCard. All right, this week's special guest is Tom Clements. Tom Clements had an outstanding football career. Pittsburgh born and bred. He was a Canadian Football League star, Rookie of the Year, Grey Cup with the Ottawa Rough Riders, Grey Cup as well at Winnipeg, coached by a number of fantastic people in the course of his career, named a top 50 player all-time in the Canadian Football League and the 1994 Canadian Football League Hall of Famer. Did dabble in the NFL, but mostly not as a player, but as a coach, he was outstanding. He touched the lives of a lot of Pro Bowl quarterbacks or helped turn them into Pro Bowl quarterbacks, and then some of the greats of the game up north in Green Bay. Let's listen into our conversation with the former Notre Dame star.
I'm good. Great to be here. Happy to be with you guys.
Is it a permanent retirement now? Because they keep reeling you back in when they need some quarterback help.
Permanent unless someone pays me a lot of money.
So you're not saying no. And
never say never.
Yeah. So are you still watching? Are you still watching the league right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan. I grew up a Steelers fan. I used to go to the games with my dad when I was like 5, 6 years old. I mean, I used to see Bobby Lane play back in old Forbes Field. That's a while back. But I was always a Steelers fan, and now that I'm retired, I still watch all the games. I watch college games, and it's great on YouTube. You can watch every game you want to watch. So it's I still keep up to date.
You know, Tom, being an ex-offensive lineman, my eyes always gravitate towards the offensive line first. When you're watching the game now from an easy chair, do you watch quarterback fundamentals? Do you watch their passing decisions that they make, or how do you watch the game?
Well, I usually watch the quarterback in the backfield. It's hard to every play make an assessment of the decision making because you don't see what the quarterback sees. So it's some plays you can say, yeah, that was totally bad. Other plays, you don't see what they see. But I usually watch the game, follow the ball, and then I'll watch and passing, try to see what the pass play, especially on third down, try to see what the defense is trying to do and whether the O-line and the quarterback can adjust the protection to pick it up.
You know, Jeff and I recently have done podcasts with Ken Anderson and Phil Simms, but I can think of nobody better to ask this question to. Quarterback, is it tougher to teach or learn?
Well, probably to learn because you can instruct them as to what to do and show them on film as to how they should react and what they should see, but you have to go out there and actually experience it and practice. And then in the games, especially as a younger guy, practice is obviously easier than the game. Yeah, in the game, things move fast, and they see things for the first time. So as a quarterback gets more experience, you know, he can remember what he saw in previous situations and know how to react. So it takes a while for the quarterback to learn and then actually go out and do it when it's live.
The evolution of the listening device and the helmet. Going back into your day, I'm sure that you never had a listening device in your helmet, but nowadays you're speaking into a walkie-talkie and you're telling the quarterback to play. Is that beneficial for the quarterback, or when you had to learn all the terminology, all the different packages that you had, sometimes you had a guy shuttling plays in from the sideline. What do you think of the evolution of the listening device?
Well, I've always thought if that was around when I was playing, I wouldn't like it.
Really?
Yeah, because you don't like people talking in your ear. And when I played, especially up in, I'll go from Notre Dame, we used to signal everything in. So you didn't have anyone talking in your ear. You signaled the formation, signaled the play. And then when I was playing up in Canada, I called my own plays. So you had to prepare just like a coach would to get ready for the game. So because of that, I don't know if I would like someone talking in my ear, but I guess if you grow up with that situation, it can be beneficial as long as the play caller remains calm on the headset and it just gives you the play and spits it out quickly, and then you can go from there.
Score big at your local Chevy dealer. The Chevy Silverado will take you through this season in style. Chevy Drive Chicago, official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Won a national championship, fourth in the Heisman voting, beat number 1 ranked Alabama in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Eve 1973, and a first-team All-American among many other accolades. We'll get into Canadian football in a moment. So how did you decide to go about defining what type of coach you were going to be? And then just the fortunate aspect of coaching so many talented quarterbacks.
Well, I think every coach has to coach within his personality, and I'm not a yeller, not a screamer, and I tried to coach guys the way I'd like to be coached. It's just you lay out what it is you're trying to implement. Here's how we do it. If they don't do it that way, then you correct them sternly, but you don't have to yell and scream. And then it's kind of different depending on who you're coaching. When I first got to Green Bay, Brett Favre was still there. He'd been playing for 13 years or 14 years at that time. So it was more of a collaboration, we'd talk and watch the film, and I'd say, Brett, here's what I see. And he'd say, well, I see it's something different, and we'd come to a conclusion. Or, Brett, why don't you try this? And he'd say, okay, because, his dad, he's the son of a coach. So if he'd try it and it worked, great. If he tried it and didn't feel comfortable with it, he'd just say, let's do it a different way. And you talk about it that way. Now, when you're coaching a younger guy, I got to Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers when he was in his second year. So it's a little different. So it's, here's the plan, here are the techniques, here's what you're supposed to do. Let's do it. You better do it. And then as it went along, obviously he got to the point where Brett was when I first got to Green Bay, and then it became similar to Brett. You talk about it. I mean, Aaron was in the same system until he left Green Bay. It was always the same system.
During my career with the Bears, we had a lot of success against Green Bay. During your career with Green Bay, you had a lot of success against the Bears. Do you feel that this game still has the same emotional attachment the way you went through it? Because with the way I went through it, Ditka did not like Forrest Gregg. He didn't like the Green Bay Packers. He grew up with Green Bay the way he did, so there was a lot of emotions that were attached from the head coach down to the players. How did you feel about it throughout the course of your career because you guys were so successful?
You always knew when it was Chicago week. The coaches, Mike McCarthy and Matt LaFleur, do a good job, especially with younger guys, telling him what this game has been like. I mean, it's probably the longest rivalry in NFL history. A lot of great players have played in the game. Even in my early days with Green Bay, still Chicago had our number a little bit. And as we got better, then it kind of flipped the other way. But we were always ready to play Chicago. We knew it was going to be a tough game. And I think this year it should be a great game.
Yeah, first of 2 in 3 weeks. So that's going to be in a very interesting situation and scenario, especially late in the season. And heck, they could meet in the playoffs for a third time. That's happened before as well. So you have touched Jordan Love as well, and you've observed Caleb Williams. What are your impressions of both and how they're developing?
Well, obviously, Jordan has played a little longer than Caleb. I think he's doing very well. I got to Green Bay the second time when he was in his second year. Aaron was still there, and so he was still in his learning and maturation stage. He's a great guy to work with, very even-keeled. You ask him to do something, he'll try to do it to the best of his ability. And then when you make corrections, he listens and he tries to make the correction that you told him about. So I think Jordan is playing very well this year from what I've seen. I haven't watched every game, but I've watched a lot. He has the mental makeup, he has the intelligence, and he has the physical abilities, and he has some great receivers to throw to. Caleb, I haven't seen as much, but when I have watched him, I'm impressed. I think he's a very good athlete. He can extend plays. He can get yards with his legs. I think he has a strong arm. Probably his accuracy hasn't been what the coaches there would want it to be, but it's still pretty good. And I think as he plays more and understands what's happening out there and sees things for a couple times, that accuracy will improve. But I think he's a very good player, great player. Obviously, he's the number 1 pick in the draft. So you got, the NFL is a quarterback-driven league right now, and I think both Green Bay and Chicago have the guys that they want to do it. And over the next several years, there are going to be a lot of battles.
Tom, you also had possibilities with the Bears back in the day. Did you You wonder how things might have turned out. You interviewed for the Bears job after Lovey's dismissal in 2013, and then the Packers blocked you for OC job interview in 2010. No doubt when you're rising in your profession, you appreciate those opportunities to at least interview for higher positions. What was your memory on those situations, and what did you think?
Well, the first one was they wanted to interview me for the offensive coordinator, and as you say, the Packers blocked me from doing that. I got a little bit of a raise because of that. And then I did interview for the head job, didn't get it, but it was a good process. So I lived in Chicago for about 4 years before I got back into football. I worked there as a lawyer. So I love Chicago, and I would often visit there when I was in Green Bay. So I was very hopeful to get there and see what might work out. It didn't work out, and obviously I was disappointed, but it worked out pretty well for me. So I have no regrets.
And you got yourself a Super Bowl ring too, right? The impact you made in the Canadian Football League, there's so many awards, so many recognitions, including the Hall of Fame there and a top 50 player all time, couple of Grey Cups with 2 different teams. What did you learn in that wide open system of football in Canada that you applied to your coaching in the NFL, if at all? And what was that experience like for you? Because you put up some crazy numbers, outstanding career there in the Canadian Football League.
Well, as I said, what I really enjoyed about the game, it was wide open, no doubt, so that you threw the ball more than I did coming out of college, but we still relied heavily on the running game too. I think at least in my first 5 or 6 years up there, we always had a 1,000-yard rusher. So I didn't go like some of these quarterbacks and throw it every play. I still wanted to run the ball. And I think it was great preparation for me when I became a coach, because as I said earlier, at that time, the quarterbacks of every team called their own plays. So to be successful, you had to be ready in every situation. So you got a game plan from the coaches, then I would put together from that game plan, what I like to do in certain situations. So you had a thought in every situation that might arise during the course of the game. You knew 1 or 2 or 3 things you wanted to go to. So I thought that was great preparation, because that's what you have to do as a coach. You got to help those guys. No one calls their own plays in the NFL now, but it's still a good process to go through. And then I guess one year in Green Bay, we tried to go no huddle all the time and let Aaron call the plays at the line of scrimmage. And we did that for about half the year. That's a heavy burden, especially in the NFL. It's a little different in the CFL. And so then we just took it back and let him play rather than have to think as much as he normally would have to if he were calling the plays. But I still enjoyed it. It was wide open. It was a lot of fun to play in Canada.
In Canada, when you were calling plays, did they have the personnel changes like they do in the NFL today, where they could go to a nickel, a dime, and all that? And as a play calling quarterback, you see the conclusion of the play, and then are you looking at personnel changes at the sideline and then calling your play, or how'd you go about that business?
Well, there were some personnel changes, but not like what they have today in the NFL. When I was playing on offense, you had an extra receiver. You had 4 receivers. You had the line, then you had 2 backs as well in the backfield. So we stayed with that personnel grouping, other than short yardage, for like 95% of the time. Defense, it wasn't as exotic as the defenses are now, so it was a lot easier to prepare to play in Canada at that time. I haven't seen many Canadian games recently, so I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's probably a little similar to what it is in the NFL now as far as changing of personnel offensively and defensively. But I didn't experience it that much. So when I called a play, see how much yardage we got. Hey, what do I want to do in this situation? See if they did make any changes, and then call the next play based on my preparation.
All right, one more question to a quarterback. So in 1985, we had a cold weather game, and Jim McMahon wore gloves in that game, and then he got to become so comfortable to him with the grip and the gloves and everything, he ended up wearing them indoors. As a coach, did you ever put on those gloves and throw the football a little bit? And then because of your background in the Canadian League with some of the temperatures you could play in, would you have worn them? Would you encourage them to wear them? Or do you not even take that into consideration?
Well, I think that's just an individual situation. We had one time we did try something like that. It was going to be a very cold game in Canada. The coach suggested a glove, actually with some tacks on the glove so you could grip the ball, which was kind of cheating, but we tried it anyway. But I didn't like that. So I never played with a glove after. I just did that in practice. So I never played with the glove. I just was able to keep my hands pretty warm. I used to put them way up under my shoulder pads where it always stayed warm, and I didn't seem to have any problem. I kind of liked playing in the cold. It was fun.
I lied too. I got one more because it just hit me. You coach so many different people. What's the most important thing, if you could simplify it in maybe a word or two, that you could teach a quarterback?
Well, you got to always be prepared. You got to make a quick decision. I think the best quarterbacks are good decision makers and guys who take care of the ball. Because if you know where to go with the ball and you get it there, obviously someone in the NFL should have the arm talent to make the throw. Some guys are better than others. But you have to see the defense, understand what they're doing, make a good decision, and don't force it. Take care of the ball.
I read that you were a stickler for footwork.
Yeah, that's when I got to Green Bay, we had a program that was instituted by Mike McCarthy where we would. I mentioned it was the quarterback school, and we'd start that school we'd film the quarterback on their drop back mechanics, and we'd film it, we'd critique it at the beginning of the off-season program, and then when OTAs came, we'd do it again to see if they made the improvements that we talked about. So, and I think I could. You could look at just watch the quarterback's feet in practice and see how they're implementing the play, and you can make a good determination whether it was a good throw or not. Because you have to get your body position, you have to get your body and your feet in position to make a good throw. But then you have guys like Brett and Aaron who can make great throws when they're off balance, and you have to do that at times. But assuming you drop back and the line is protecting well, just watch the quarterback's feet. If they're in rhythm, not hopping around, they're usually making a good play.
Tom, we didn't even go through a lot of it, but I know we wanted to focus more on just his thoughts on developing quarterbacks, like the chain of them they had in Green Bay, and his last touch point was Jordan Love, and he coached a game with Matt Flynn. Remember Matt Flynn?
Yeah.
Green Bay?
Yeah.
He had a 6-touchdown game. Got himself a big contract with Seattle, and then they draft Russell Wilson, and he never really had a career there. But he also coached, I don't know if you remember this, he coached Elvis Grbac in Kansas City, Pro Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
Cordell Stewart in Pittsburgh, Pro Bowl. Tommy Maddox to a Pro Bowl.
Well, that's the thing. I really believe that. I'm almost glad that it's a listening podcast and you don't see our pictures, because you have to listen to Tom's voice and his demeanor. Why was he so successful coaching one of the most important positions in sports? Because he didn't let his personality affect the personality of whom he was coaching. And when you talk about Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and when they came aboard and the different obstacles those guys face, Tom's personality was the perfect guy for the job. And then you see the way those guys and the success they had in their career, not to mention the other guys that they had that had success under him. It's a lot of times it's that type of personality is the quarterback coach. And, he's a lawyer. So he's a super intelligent person that he kind of took his intelligence into football.
Yeah, 5 years at the law firm Bell, Boyd, and Lloyd in Chicago. It's now named something else, but a Juris Doctor, magna cum laude from Notre Dame Law School in 1986. while he was playing in the Canadian Football League. And what an interesting man for sure. But loved having him. I love those Notre Dame connections, big time. Good news, Chicago. United Airlines is getting brand new planes with all the bells and whistles like Bluetooth connectivity, screens at every seat, and room for everyone's roller bag. United, proud to fly the Chicago Bears, and you too. I stumbled across something this morning, Tom. It had me laughing. I did not recall this. I do recall the era when you would have a raucous crowd and you break the huddle and the visiting team is asking for quiet and the referee has to intervene. So they had your December game in 1985 in Miami on there, and it was a whole video of Steve Fuller says, hey, I can't, they're not going to hear my count. They're not going to hear the snap count. And all you guys on the offensive line looking around, you guys could not snap the ball. They asked Don Shula to help quiet the crowd. There was meetings with referees. This lasted 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes before, and then finally you go under center and Steve says, hey, they can't hear me. The crowd was so deafening. Do you remember that? And this was a thing because you could get penalized because of the crowd in your home building if the crowd got too crazy. How did in the world, I forgot about this era.
I can't believe it because it affected us back in the day when we were going to play in Detroit and there was more Bears fans than there was Detroit. When we would go down to Tampa, there was more Bears fans than there was Tampa. And that just happened to be a game that it was surrounded with Dolphin fans. And when you think of Don Shula, you think of Dan Marino, you think of Clayton and Duper, and you think of the defense they had at that point. They had a lot of fans, and they were making a push for the playoffs as much as the Bears were. And I remember my mom went to that game with one of the ladies she worked with, and she talked about the deafening noise in the old Orange Bowl. And it was just it was more of an archaic brand of Florida football being in that old Orange Bowl instead of the modern day was initially called the Joe Robbie Stadium, because we played the first game in that stadium as well. So yeah, it was loud and it was hot. And they were thriving in that atmosphere.
Yeah. My point is though, and Joe Namath was on the TV call with Frank Gifford and O.J. Simpson. He goes, something has to be done. They got to make a rule to prohibit this kind of behavior. It sounds archaic to think that we're going to not allow the crowd to go crazy when the offense has the football. So here's what happened. In 1989, there was a crowd noise rule implemented by the NFL, stipulating that if the crowd was too loud, the coach and or players must, in capital letters, implore the fans to quiet down. If after 3 warnings the noise persisted, of course it did because the fans were not going to back down, the home team would be charged a timeout. After all timeouts were exhausted, delay of game penalty would be charged. However, this lasted for 18 years on the books. And finally, the rule was abolished in just 2007. I did not recall any of that, but we've never had any issues since because now we got silent count. My big question is, why not silent count back then?
A lot of times, they didn't use a lot of shotgun back then.
Okay.
There was more under center, and they felt that you should be able to hear the cadence from the quarterback. We did try to go on a cadence that Jay would call the cadence. And so now, okay, if we are in shotgun in that loud atmosphere, let the center call the cadence and we'll go on that. Or else we had a rhythm count. If they wanted to go shotgun in a loud atmosphere like that, we would go on quick or slow. And that meant the process of the count. It would either be set, boom, boom, snap the ball, or else that hesitation for a second, lift your head up and snap it. So, listen, there was a lot of trial and error back then. And then as soon as you told the home crowd to quiet down, you just instigated them to get up and out of their seats, and they would just continue it.
Right. It was awesome. And now, because I saw the video, it just reminded me of games past, and that definitely happened a lot. But just to sit there and Steve Fuller just going, hey, man, I can't snap the ball. We're not going to be able to do it. Jay is out there throwing his hands up in the air. Then at some point, you get in your stance, and you're wound back like this looking at Steve. And Steve Ditka goes to the sidelines, gets a cup of water. It was funny to me. It just happened to be on, and I thought you'd get a kick out of it as well. One last thing here, because the Bears are getting a lot of top performance from a lot of different players, and players that we didn't know. We didn't know Nashawn Wright. We didn't know some other DeMarco Jackson. We didn't know what Amin Ogbongbemiga would be able to do in a starting role at linebacker. We didn't know what Theo Benedette would do at left tackle, or for that matter, Ozzie Trapillo was a rookie right tackle for the most part of his college career. Did play some left tackle, but at left tackle. We can go on and on and on. This points to me the coaching is fantastic, because the key to really good coaching, Tom, is not what you do with the great players. Yeah, okay, get them all on the same page where you're making a great execution, but it's coaches who get players to play beyond their potential. Would you say that is a rock-solid definition of great coaching? Because that's happening.
So to me, Jeff, I think a lot of this process started in the off season in the weight room, because the couple times that I went and visited the weight room during the off season, you could see it was a room that was building strength. And I think there's a lot more strength evidence right now in the game than maybe there was a little bit in the past. So Austin Booker had to get bigger and stronger. Dominique Robinson had to do that in his career, and he did it. You see all these other guys, Theo Benedette changing his body. Ozzie Trapillo's a big guy. You see the extra guys. So I think this is a process where you can take strength and make it a confidence, and then have that brought onto the field, and then the really good coaching staff that Ben put together in the specific of technique improvement now gives you confidence on the field. So I think everything, when you set this thing in motion, and it started in the offseason weight room and continued out on this playing field, and we're seeing evidence of it this late in the season, it's about the effort and the work they put in since the very beginning.
What are you most keenly interested to see happen on Sunday? How the Bears handle what, or what the Bears are able to do against the Packers? What? I mean, how are we looking at this? What's going to be the path to victory? That's something that he outlines. When I say he, Ben Johnson, every week for his players, this is our path. This is how we're going to win.
Realistic timing on offense, and I mean that in the running game and the passing game. So you have very valuable assets like the G.J. Moore and Roman Dunze in the wide receiver group. You have talented tight ends, and you have talented running backs that can catch it out of the backfield. So what is the timing of your passing game to take Parsons out of not necessarily out of the game, but really limit his exposure to the quarterback? And then, everything that we heard leading up to that Philadelphia game is, man, these two defensive tackles, they can dominate a football game, and they can dominate an entire offense. And then you go through 3 double-digit drives to open the game, and all of a sudden now you're fatiguing the defensive tackle position, and now they're on a rotation basis the rest of the game. So let this running game take over as well as it did in Philly, but have the timing to an efficient passing game.
Bears fans, gear up at the Pro Shops at Soldier Field, your home for officially licensed jerseys, headwear, hoodies, and more. Open daily near the Veterans Memorial Water Wall. The Pro Shops at Soldier Field, a Fanatics experience. Tom, it's going to be a fun day. I'm telling you, it's going to be a fun experience to watch Bears-Packers. You're going to have a smile on your face throughout
There's
the
only
whole
one way,
60
Jeff.
minutes.
And so, listen, don't start yelling at me on the bus or the morning of or any of that. And
I know better than that to poke the bear, Tom. I know that. Because we're going to be at Lambeau for a long time. We have our TV show early, 10:30 in the morning. So we're getting there long before kickoff to have you stewing your juices.
Yep, but I have high expectations, man. In Ben, I trust.
That's right. That's the way we're going to wrap this up. In Ben, I trust. Special thanks to our guest, Tom Clements. And for Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bear down, everybody.